Hey guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. As beta 11 of my CPDLC AOC software and beta 34 of GL11JS just have been released, I decided it's time to make another tutorial. Especially as I received a lot of requests for an English manual and an English tutorial, and I thought that a video tutorial is much more cooler than a manual, but meanwhile I found out that a video tutorial um, needs a lot of more time than just writing a manual, and I hope that everything will work now, because this is I guess the 10th attempt or so to do this tutorial. Okay. um, I decided to split this tutorial into three parts. The first part you're watching right now contains some general information about the software, the installation setup, the settings, um, and the first start of the software. Then in the second part we'll deal with the ATC menu, which contains the CPDLC functions of the software. And in the third part, we'll talk about the AOC part, which is airline dependent and which contains the brand new journey log feature. So let's start. First of all, what is CPDLC? CPDLC stands for Controller Pilot Data Link Communication, and it is mainly a text communication between the pilot and the cockpit in aircraft and the ATC, the air traffic controller on ground. It is used mainly in high density airspaces to reduce the load on the voice frequencies, and to improve or mainly to support the communication in HF airspaces. So for instance, over the Atlantic Ocean, where you have HF communication. And example for CPDLC in high density airspace is Eurocontrol in Maastricht. They use CPDLC. So and that's how I got the idea for the software. In spring 2011, I had the chance to visit Eurocontrol in Maastricht, and that was the first time I heard of CPDLC. And they talked about a little bit of CPDLC, and then they showed to us how it works, and we sent a Lufthansa aircraft a few squawk changes, I guess around 4 or 5 squawk changes within 2 minutes or so, and I guess the Lufthansa pilots are still wondering why they got so many squawk changes within that short period of time. Yeah, back at home I was wondering if VATSIM or IVAO support CPDLC, and how CPDLC works on the A330, as I'm building an A330 cockpit. So I browsed on the internet and found a few things out. First of all, VATSIM and IVAO do not support CPDLC. But I found a free ARCAS network of Hoppy. Hoppy's homepage is, by the way, hoppy.nl/ARCAS, and this ARCAS network also supports CPDLC, and Hoppy coded also some clients for the cockpit and for the ATC. Yeah, here you can see Hoppy's cockpit client in style of a 747 CDU. And that's also a problem, as I found out that Airbus solved the CPDLC implementation in their cockpits a little bit differently. Core part is for sure the MCDU, but Airbus also used the so-called DCDU, which stands for Data Link Control and Display Unit, and these are the devices above the MCDU, which are installed in some of the cockpits, and the MCDU and the DCDU form the CPDLC implementation on Airbus aircraft. So Um, and that would have been a problem. But I found out that the Hoppy network is an open network, open for anyone who wants to code something for it. And so I coded my own software which supports the MCDU and also the DCDU. Yeah, that's how the software started. Um, a problem is that the Hoppy network is independent of the online fly networks like VETSIM and Vivaro, and that makes it quite difficult for the ATC, for the air traffic controllers, to use the Hoppy software because they have to deal with two softwares. They are radar software, the client, for instance, the Euroscope nowadays, and they have to use the Hoppy software. And yeah, CPDLC has been developed to reduce the load on voice frequencies and also to reduce the workload on pilots and air traffic controllers. But if our virtual air traffic controllers have to use two softwares, the workload increases again, and that's not the sense of the entire system. So we're still waiting for some plugins, for instance, for Euroscope, so that the air traffic controllers can communicate with the aircraft via CPDLC much more easily. So, yeah, for my cockpit, I developed an hardware DCDU, which you can also buy in my shop. It's www.cockpit-concept.de or .com. You can change it to the English page, or yeah, if you're from Germany like me, to the German page. And yeah, you can buy that DCDU here. It's fully functional, and I already have some profiles implemented for the use with my software. So it is very important to understand that my software, and especially Hoppy, has nothing to do with VATSIM or EVAO. And that my software is just another client for the Hoppy network. But as the software evolved, I implemented some AOC functions in the software, for instance, the ATIS request. And for sure, the ATIS request is dependent on the network. So you can configure in the config files of my software from which network the ATIS should be received. So, but this is the only part which is dependent on the network. All other functions are independent from the network. Last but not least for this short introduction is that my software is free for non-commercial use. If you want to use my software in a commercial simulator, please contact me. Okay, let's start with the software, with the installation and the settings. First of all, you may notice that the name of the software is now different. I changed the name to CPDLC AOC, as the software first started just with the CPDLC functions, but over the time I implemented more and more AOC functions, and nowadays I have the feeling that today it's more an AOC software instead of a CPDLC software. So I decided to change the name to CPDLC AOC. And for users that already use my software in the past, it's important that the name changed, as with beta 34 of GL FMGS, we had to change the communication between our software as the name changed. So you may notice that if you're using GL FMGS beta 34 and an older version of my software, the MCDU function, the ATC compate, is not working anymore. But I want to talk about that later in this tutorial. Okay, first of all, first of all, second. So second point is that .NET Framework 4 client profile is mandatory for the use of the software. If you have .NET Framework 4 the full version installed, you're just fine. But if you have .NET Framework 3.5 installed, then it will not work. So .NET Framework 4, at least the client profile, is required for the software. As usual, the package is split into 4 parts. The central part is the server part, and the server needs a connection to the internet to connect to the Hoppy network. It needs, or not needs, but it's nice to have a connection to the flight simulator via FSU, FPC, or WideFS. And it also connects to GHL-FMJS if installed, so the server has to run on the same computer as GHL-FMJS server. So the other models don't need a connection to the internet. They just need network connection to the server. So yeah, for sure, the DCDU to DCDU softwares, 3 MCDUs for the up to 3 MCDUs in the cockpit, or for sure for the A320 you just need 2, but the A330 and A340 have 3 MCDUs installed. And the sound module is an external sound module, because if you receive CPDLC message, a sound, some kind of ringtone, will be played by default on the server. But if you don't want to have the sound be played on the computer where the server runs, you can use this external sound module and play the sound on any computer you like. So I have installed that sound module on my system's computer. I have 3 computers in my cockpit. I have the flight simulator computer, which runs all the server modules, also from GHL-FMJS. I have a systems computer which runs the displays and also the sound module, because to that computer my cockpit loudspeakers are connected, and for sure I want to have that sound be played on the cockpit loudspeakers and not on the background engine loudspeakers. So you can use that sound module. As usual, I deliver 3 fonts I created by my own. I also renamed the fonts. Also important for the fonts that these are free for non-commercial use, same as the entire CPDLC AOC package. If you want to use the fonts on the for a commercial simulator, please contact me. The same goes for the use of the fonts for the GHL-FMJS. If you didn't know, I made also the fonts for the GHL-FMJS, as I thought when I first saw GHL-FMJS, I guess it was in spring 2010. The displays look quite weird with the font Arial also. I decided to create fonts. So all in all, I created 4 fonts that are the so-called screens font, which is not included in the package, as it is don't need it here. So then for sure the MCDU, which is also included in the GHL-FMJS, then the DCDU, which is not included in GHL-FMJS, and the printer font, which is also not included in GHL-FMJS. So 4 fonts in total. Very important always, if you download a new version, is to check the changelog. Yes, you find a lot of details in here, things that changed, and sometimes also some important informations that are not included in a tutorial. So make sure you always read the changelog here if you download a new version. Okay, let's continue with the setup. Central part of the setup is the server ini. So let's go through the points step by step. So first you find the log-on code. That is the log-on code for the Hoppy network. For the Hoppy network, you need a log-on code, which you can receive on his website, hoppy.nl/arcus, and that get log-on code. Fill everything in here, click on register, also fill in that captcha, and then you will receive the log-on code by email, I guess. You have to enter it here. You don't have to care of this one. That is the position of the server window. You can also move freely the server window, and when you close the server, the position will be stored here. That are the ports for the external modules. If you have no clue what that means, leave it as it is. Play sound is the flag if the server should play the sound. You can also change that graphically in a checkbox in the server window. Start minimize should be clear. You can also change that in the server window graphically. Connect to Hello MCU. We'll deal with that later. Okay, then the printer setup. You can assign any Windows printer to this software. So that's my printer. It's a Brother PJ622. That has to be the name that is implemented in the Windows config. So let's go to the printer settings. Don't wonder, it's a German Windows. Yeah, we have that printer here, and you have to type in the name, which you can find here. So if you want to use that printer, you have to type in the entire name of the printer, same as here. So the font that should be used is a cockpit printer. And at this point I realized I didn't show how to install the fonts. Simply select them, right click, and where is it? Don't know, usually you have that install button here, or you can go to the control panel, fonts, and then you can drag and drop them there. So I guess I have them already installed. Yeah, I do not want to replace them. No. Okay, that's how it works. So let's continue. Printer font size is clear. You have to you can yeah, simply make a test print out and see how it looks with that default settings. Yeah, and then adapt if necessary. Line spacing should be clear. Offset left is the offset in millimeters from the left side of the paper. Add lines to top. You can add some free lines to the top or at the bottom of the page. And the most important parameter is chars per line, which defines how many chars are printed in a single line. Okay. At crew control, we have a telex option in the AOC part of the software, where you can send telex messages to other Hoppy members. And there's one option where you can send a message to crew control, but you cannot enter a call sign or an ID or a name in there, because this ID is defined here. So it's yeah, usually your crew control ID. For instance, for Air Berlin, let's call that BR Ops, yeah, or something else. The software needs to know which aircraft you're flying, so we need the aircraft registration. For instance, the Delta Alpha Lima Papa India, like my cockpit is, which is yeah, nowadays flying for Air Berlin, which would be AB and BR, but I'm flying the old version, so it operated for LTU, which is LT and LTU. So here's the part we talked about for VATSIM or IVAO. For the ATIS request, the ATIS source, it's 0 for VATSIM or 1 for IVAO. And last but not least, it's the option for the brand new journey log feature, but I would like to show you that to you later in the third part, so we'll leave that empty now. Okay, don't save this. You have to save for sure. Okay, important for the printer is this software is designed for an endless paper roll. So the software does not support single papers like A4 or so, or letter format. For paper rolls, you have to change something, but unfortunately, it differs from computer to computer. Not for the typical messages, but if you're sending very, very long messages, for instance, 5,000 characters or so, you may notice that the printout stops after, for instance, a 4 page or a letter page, depends on your regional settings, and you have to change something in your printer settings for endless rolls. Okay, select the printer, select its printer server settings. I hope it's the same name in English, and you have to create a new format for that. I already did that. Here it is. I called it A4 endless. So simply select A4 or your letter format, depends on your location in the world. Then you can create a new format and simply type in a quite big height. I found out that some of these settings don't work. For instance, if this is now 2.5 meters, if you enter 3 meters, so 300 centimeters, then it will not work. So you have to find the maximum setting that is working. And now if you select that there should be no feed at the end of the printout, then it won't feed until the 2.5 meters are out of the printer, but it will stop immediately after the last line. So yeah, that varies from printer to printer. For my printer here, hopefully I find it now. It's yeah, okay, it's in German now. It's the page feed. It's set on no feed. So even if it thinks that the page is 2.5 meters long, it will stop after the last line. So for instance, if I'm just printing 3 lines, it will stop immediately after 3 lines. If you need some additional feed, I guess I set some some feed. Yeah, it's a ½ inch that is added below the printout. If this setting is not available or it won't work, then you can where's it, server settings, then you can use this add lines bottom, or if you need some additional lines at the top to look better, then you can add some lines here. Okay, my software also needs navigation data. This navigation data comes from level D. It just needs these 4 files. It's the airport.dat, fmcident.txt, the wp nav8 and wp navfix from level D. Simply copy them into the server folder. This data is needed because ATC can send some deferred clearances, which is valid at a certain waypoint. For instance, it can send at Cola climb flight level 300, and when you acknowledge that message, then it recalls the page automatically if you are close to the waypoint. So it's not needed, but if my software has the data, it can monitor the waypoints. Okay, let's have a look at the other modules. both settings will look the same, so let's browse quickly through one. Hide buttons. For home cockpit use, I already implemented some features. Let's browse through it first. You can hide the buttons. You can also send that in the graphical user interface. Hide border. You can hide the border. You can lock the position. Always in top half of the software of the window. Top left for sure. Most important is the server IP. So here you have to type in the IP address, your local network IP address of the computer where the server runs, and the loopback address, which means the same computer, doesn't work. So you have to make sure that this IP is correctly. For my network, it's this one, I guess. So the port number has to match with the port number you set in the server ini file. So make sure both match, but by default they do. You can also select that the font in the graphical user interface of the DCU is bold. That depends on your display settings and how the software looks. It's just an option. I don't need it, but I implemented it. No idea why. So almost the same settings for the MCU. Additionally, the 4:3 mode, which simply means that the display's ratio is 4:3. Usually I guess it's around 5:4, but I'm not sure. This is mainly used when you're using a hardware display. Then as most displays have the 4:3 ratio, then you can select that to true. GL colors, I created or I implemented own colors according to pictures, but if you want to use the colors GL uses in his FMGS, then you can set it to true. You can also lock the position for sure, always in top. Hey, top left, server IP, port is clear. That's the MCU, and last but not least, the sound, which just needs the server IP. So if you're using home cockpit, then the FSU IPC offsets might be important for you. You can find them in the document. The FSU PC offset 73A5 with the length 1. One is write only and is used to control the keys of the 3 MCDUs and the 2 DCDUs, and also the ATC message button, where you can find that button also in the server window. It is needed to silence the ringtone when a CPDLC message has been arrived. And the next offsets, I guess they are the 73A6 length 1 read only is used for the light of the ATC message button. So might be nice for you. I already mentioned the connection to FSU PC or to wide FMGS. The connection is not mandatory, but especially if you are using the software in a home cockpit, it is very important for you. So make sure that my software has connection to the FS via FSU PC or wide FS. Okay, now let's start the software. So first of all, the server. Depending on your computer, it may take a couple of settings, so don't worry if it takes 10 seconds or so. Let's start one DCDU and one MCDU, and we don't need the sound module now, so let's keep it closed. Okay, regarding the server window, you can see here the version. It's up to date, beta 11. nav data is up to date and complete, so all 4 files are in the server folder, and it's also the latest ARAC. So flight sim currently not connected, MCU1 and DCDU1 are connected. Also important, make sure that your flight sim is running at real time, because otherwise you will get a message here in the log window. Print test page will print a test page for sure on the printer, and with the printer settings you set in the server.ini. Play sound will play the ringtone song when a CPDLC message arrives. Start minimized should be clear for the server window, and this is the ATC message button, which will start flashing when a CPDLC message arrives. You will see that later. So both windows can be moved freely with the mouse, drag and drop, and especially for home cockpit, for more precise movement, you can move the windows by pressing the control key, and then with the arrow keys you can move the windows by 1 pixel. By pressing the L key instead of the control key, you can move the windows by 10 pixels. And if you press both the control and the L key, you can resize the windows. Same for the MCU windows. Right click, then you get this context menu. These are the options you saw earlier in the ini files. Hide buttons, hide border, text bold. Yeah, you cannot see that now. Lock position is clear, and you cannot move the windows anymore. Always in top clear. Save settings, very important to really save the settings, because the settings are not safe when you click on close, only when you click on save settings. So here almost the same. New is the 4-3 mode, which is only available in in hide buttons. Yeah, you can see that. GL colors. Have a look at the colors of the font. Lock position. Yeah, and here it is the same with save settings. So you can now see here a couple of scratchpad messages. Enter aircraft registration. You can clear that by pressing the clear key. Enter aircraft airline ID. You can also clear that. That's because we did not enter the values in the server ini first, a couple of minutes ago. So you have to do that now, because these values are mandatory for the use of the software. If you do not enter the values, you cannot use the software properly. So this is the MCU menu. So click here on ATSU or press the ATC key, then com init, and now I enter the aircraft registration. You can type that on your keyboard. Delta Alpha Lima Papa India, which is our A330. Airline ident is LT, and airline ident 3 is LTU. For Air Berlin it would be AB and BER. So the airline ID with 2 letters or 2 characters and 3 characters. Okay, now let's have a look how everything works with connection to GL-FMGS. Okay, meanwhile I started GL-FMGS. I already started both MCUs. The software is running, and on the side of GL-FMGS you don't have to do anything for the connection. Just on my side, you have to make sure that in the server ini you set both connect to GL-FMGS or connect to GL-MCDU. Both are set to true, and when you start the server now, you can see that this is always green for MCDU1 and MCDU2. My software does not know if GL-FMGS is running. It assumes that it is running, so it is always green. And now, if you press the ATC COM key, look what happens. You get my software also on this MCU. Both are running independently. So as usual, you can access all the page of GLFMJS, and that this page is not modeled, and my software now communicates with GLFMJS. And yeah, you can use it as usually. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty cool feature, especially if you're using GLFMJS and you have an A320 and you don't have a third MCU as me on the A330. So I personally configured it in a way that MCU 1 and 2 connect to GLFMJS, so I can press the ATC COM key on the usual GL MCUs and I get to the Atsu. Atsu is, by the way, the computer which contains the ATC and the AOC functions. And on MCU3, which is not supported by GL11GS for sure, as the A320 just has two MCUs, I have my software running. In that case, MCU3 is running, so I don't use MCU2 and 1, but it connects with the option to GL11GS. Yeah, and you can use it as usually. Okay, that was everything now I wanted to talk in the first part. Yeah, I talked about some general remarks of the software, the installation setup and the settings, and finally we started the software and I showed you the connection to GL11JS. So that's it for the first part. See you in the second part.